Welcome, 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 Phoenixes. How are you? Hello, my lovely Phoenixes, and thank you for joining me again on this labor of love, which is your awakening, really. To know the power within you, to understand that you really hold the power and the keys all in your hand, that wisdom is right inside of you, and you just have to tap into it. To shed away the blockages, all the things that are keeping you down, that are keeping you believing a negative and a false narrative. And that is my labor of love. So this week we're talking about the unspeakable, our shadow selves, and doing shadow work. And so what is shadow work, right? What are our shadow selves? What does that even mean? Well, the shadow selves are the things, the parts of yourself that you don't agree with, that you don't like, that you're embarrassed by, that you're ashamed by, that you feel you have to hide or won't be approved by others, or that you don't approve of yourself, but you can't help yourself for whatever reason, right? These are the parts of ourselves that we are ashamed of, right? Including the shadow parts of ourselves in terms of behavior, whether it's sabotaging yourself or, doing things like not keeping love away, or not being able to be in relationships, or not being able to be genuine or authentic. Like these parts of ourselves that formulate, that really are protecting us, and defense mechanisms that manifest and present, that really the purpose were to protect us, and they served us. They served us well for the moment that we needed them, in order for us to survive, our ego to survive. All right, and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about these structures of personality, right? In psychology, in the psychological world, right? We talk a lot about the mind and how the personality in the mind is made up, and how the components that actually bring it together. Right? And so there's the neurological, which is how the brain works, right? And that's all physiological, that's physical. But then there's the idea of personality. And when we talk about shadow work, we refer to works by Jungian theory, which I can't say that well. It's what it is, Jungian theory. And it comes about the idea of personalities, right? And that he created about 12 archetypes of the different categories that people in general can fit into. Right? So the shadow parts of ourselves is the parts like the opposite of the ego, the opposite of what the ego wants to believe, or it is to protect the ego that it was created for in the first place. Okay, so why even do shadow work? These parts of ourselves that really have been always kind of hidden, not so conscious, right? So conscious in the mind. Why even pay attention? Well, that's the key there. If they continue to be in your subconscious, or you not be conscious of them, then they control you. You don't control it. You don't control your life. You don't control your reactions. You don't control how you're seeing things, how you're able to see things and process things. And so that's why it's important, right? Really doing shadow work is coming in and really encountering and confronting these parts of yourself, and seeing them and loving them and accepting them and understanding them for their purpose and even being, and that they are part of you. They are parts of you, and that these parts of you are not anything to be ashamed of. It's to bring the whole together, and you cannot be whole without accepting the parts of the shadow parts of yourself, because everything in this world is this sort of dichotomy. It's not a black and white thing. Everything is this beautiful symphony, in everything, right? Even in the way that we are humans, we're flawed. We must accept those flaws. We must love ourselves and our imperfections, for we are perfectly imperfect, is what I like to say. Perfectly imperfect, right? Imperfectly perfect. All right, so why is it important? Because it's absolutely utterly healing to be able to accept yourself in that way. It takes a certain level of maturity, of ascension, to recognize yourself as that way, to recognize that things are not good or bad. Those are labels that we create. Wanting something or desiring something doesn't mean it's bad or good. It just is. It just is. We attach the value to things. It's what you think and deem good or bad. right? But it really just is. And if we can start teasing and tethering away at those fundamental universal laws, life would go a lot easier for us, right? And most of all is that love really does come from within. If you cannot see yourself for who you are and absolutely accept all of you, how can you expect anyone to do it or to be able to? If they're not doing the same for them, how could they love anyone back if they don't do that for themselves? See the problem there? Love does come from within. The highest form of love. The number one vital love that there has to be for love to be actually pure, shared, received, given, provided, purely, genuinely, sincerely, is if one also loves themselves and understands. By understanding and loving yourself, you can understand and love someone else. Because if you can accept yourself flawed, you will also accept someone for their flaws. We're not perfect. Now, of course, you accept for people for their flaws, for the flaws that, right, makes sense, right? Not like, oh, he goes around killing people, I'll accept that flaw, okay, right? Not things that may be immoral. And what's immoral, back to the idea of good or bad, is anything that hurts anyone else. Like, I believe that you should live your life without hurting other people. As long as it doesn't hurt anyone else, including yourself, then maybe that's how you judge that. That's me, right? But we're not going to get into that. I could lose track and just go on about all of these topics because I'm so passionate about it, so I really can. But let's talk about what we're here to talk about today, and it's the 5 essential encounters to have with your shadow self. And so shadow work is just doing some meditations, going through it, to do some meditations, to have this contact and these conversations with the shadow self. Okay? So for each, now the first one that I like to give is called conscious shame. Okay? So it is really coming out and understanding and confronting, facing, giving a face to those parts of yourself that you don't agree with, right? Okay? So allowing the meeting of those parts of yourself. So this is through meditations that you do this. So make sure that you set up the ambiance, right? As I always say, the 5 senses. What am I hearing, smelling, feeling, what was the other senses? I forgot right now, but the 5 senses, right? So hearing, what are all these things that I'm doing, right? The 5 senses to create the ambience, set the meditative mood, get into your meditative state by taking a few deep breaths, focusing on your breathing and going into the body. And then you start doing any 5 of these exercises, or each one of them, one after the other. So the first one, you just want to write down the things that you don't like about yourself, physically, mentally, emotionally, in person, or in your personality. And then for each of them, ask yourself, how did you come to this element as good or bad, cool or uncool, valuable or worthless? When did you start not to like this quality of yourself? Why did you make those choices then? Can you understand why you made those choices? Can you forgive yourself for making those choices? So these are after you embody and you see this person that are your shadow selves, and you may even remember you like as a past self, meaning younger self, like a younger version that, a moment or a trauma or something really changed things for you. Like, I never want to be like this, right? Kind of idea. So could be that, and, really ask yourself these questions. When did it come that I thought this was a good or bad thing? As I stated, right? When did you start not to like this quality? Can you understand why it came about? Understand it. Ask the questions to understand it. Okay, number 2, bringing it to light. So this is allowing it to tell you the story. Allowing it to just really manifest and tell you why it's there. So you, in your meditative space, sit in a comfortable position, right? And you want to start beckoning it to come out, to converse. Meaning, once you get into your meditative trance, you think of this person, you ask the shadow self to present itself to you. What does, you already had an idea of them from the other exercise. But if you're doing these separate, what does show up for you? So allow it to come to you as is, and ask yourself, what does it represent to you, right? Is it linked to any particular body part, any particular time or event? What does it feel like to you, this presence? See it as separate from yourself. What is it made of? How is it connected to you? Is it made of anger? Is it made of sadness? Is it made of emotions, of pride, of embarrassment? When was it conceived and birthed into being? Ask it. What is its purpose? How does it serve? What does it do for you now? Ask these questions to this past version of you, right? Or this version of you that you hide away, right? You don't agree with. Have the conversation with it. So number 3 is a compassionate immersion, which is to call upon yourself and ask its story. Let it tell you the story. How can you relate to the story? Where did it come? How does it serve? How can you relate? How do you judge it? What is most just and objective view now? Right? And then number 4, you kind of integrate the past, present, and future. And it's like the shadow, the ego, the higher self. And what would each say to each other? You bring yourself into these meditative state, and it's to be able to embody this, either, like I say, a past version of yourself, who you are today, and who this higher self is to be. Who would that higher self be able to be? And now a couple of steps and things that requires to do this kind of work, right? So that's why, it's not something that can just easily be picked up, because you have to be able, for instance, to have or know how to get connection to your higher self, right? And I have shared that in the past, so feel free to look at that material on how to connect with your higher self, so you can have an idea and you can use it for things like these. Okay, so number 4 is this merging. What would they say to each other? These 3 versions of yourself, right? Number 5 is to redefine these shadow parts of yourself. Now, seeing it, can you understand them differently? Can you understand them for what they are, for their purpose? Can you forgive them? Can you accept it? Redefine what it was, what it did, how it serves you now, or can continue serving you, if at all. You can, at that point, say, I no longer need this of myself. I no longer need to self-sabotage, or I no longer need to, do this in secret, or I no longer need to condemn myself. I'm liberating myself from these things. Redefine what it means. Like, you were so embarrassed by this version of yourself, and now, right, can you accept it? Can you appreciate those qualities that you didn't really think were so great then? Can you appreciate them about you now? That's how you redefine that. And I want to actually refer to that movie. I don't know if anybody has seen it, Netflix, Stunts, something like that, with I'm so bad at names. I should have had this prepared, but I didn't. But if you've seen that it's a movie that was made about I forgot the actor, but Jonah Hill. Jonah Hill did this movie about his therapist, and a few amazing, definitely tips and tools on understanding a lot about life and how to navigate through life. So I do recommend that you see it. But one particular was about the shadow self. He talks about the shadow self, and for Jonah, it was like this when he was like 14-year-old or something, heavy set, and like heavily depressed and all that stuff. So that was his shadow self. So that's to give an idea of what is the shadow self and how do you work with it? How do you come to understand it? How can you, learn to appreciate it? And so you can accept all the parts of you, so you can be whole. Okay, so there you have it. like I said, there's a lot of other components to know, like how to connect with your higher self, how you're able to see these past selves, being able to know how to get yourself into a meditative state. So it takes a couple of, of those skills or those tools already practiced or known for it to be more effective. But and so again, I gave you all the tools, all the materials, put it together, study it, embrace it, get better with it, and definitely hope that this played a part in your awakening, right? And as always, it is my highest hope that my work and everything that I share with you guys really propels you forward towards your highest self and purpose, and that is what I'm here to do. So believe it, like healing is a very customized experience, and so there are a lot of things that go into it, and that's why seeking out the help, seeking out the guidance of a coach can be just absolutely invaluable, if I can tell you, absolutely invaluable, because exactly knowing how to do it, what to do, the tools that you need to, the components that you need to, and the idea is that is the glory that I have been given, called to, and that is my purpose. As I say, I really believe I'm here to awaken people to their own power, and it's just the guidance on how to do it and how to learn it. And this comes from my own experience, from my own life, and everything that I've had to overcome. And everybody has their challenges, and I know I sure have had mine, and I've had to really, ones that really have called and have challenged me to be who I am, to know who I am over and over and over again. So trust me, this is because I know from experience that it is possible, that it is an amazing spiritual journey to really get to know who you are, love and accept yourself as you are, and to really also have a sense of purpose in your life, to understand what it is that you want to contribute into the world, because that's really what fills us in so many ways. It's not just a relationship, right? People are married with kids and they find themselves in situations because they're bored or this or that. So it's not just that. And some people work and have $1 million empires and don't have family time. So it's not just that, right? It's not just that. There is more to life, and it really is about you expressing yourself, realizing yourself, and understanding that you can do anything you set your mind to. And so that is what I'm here to do. Please be sure to check out the services and the packages, because I believe, I'm convicted about the fact that I will change your life. Now, granted, always, full disclosure, you have to do the work. I cannot do it for you. I know that the tools that I have will make that happen if you do the work. Otherwise, it's wasting time. It's you delaying, just being stuck, unhappy. So make the move now. Book the services. Make sure that you rise. All right? You already know. As I always say, together we rise.